Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of 1990s Represent. On this episode, we're taking a look at Total Recall. So we're still in 1990. Next video, we'll be doing a video about a video game from 1990 and then moving into 1991. But we're still in 1990, and we're taking a look at the sci-fi action classic masterpiece, Total Recall. I absolutely love this movie. It's been a while since I've seen it, but it was streaming on Paramount, I think Paramount Plus with Showtime, and watched it just a couple days ago, and I had an amazing time rewatching this. It's been a while since I've seen it. I think the last time I watched it was like on Netflix like years ago. At the very least, like probably been like 10 years. And then prior to that, I had seen it on TV, like a very heavily edited TV version of the movie that is just like, what's the point kind of thing. Like same thing with the edited version of Pulp Fiction. There's like almost seems like the amount of editing you have to do is probably not even worth it. But Total Recall is an amazing film. Obviously didn't get to see it in theaters because it came out when I would have been about 10 years old. It was just obviously way too violent. Again, saw it then a few years later when it was on like network TV. And then I think I saw it on DVD, like when I first got a DVD player around like the year 2000 or so. Watched it when it first showed up on streaming, and then watched it again just a couple days ago. I got some notes here. We're going to go over some quick notes about the movie, and then we're just going to break the plot down and describe just like what I love about this film. So let's get our notebook open here. All right, so if I can actually find it, there's a bookmark. All right, cool. So Total Recall, first released June 1st, 1990, directed by Paul Verhoeven. Absolutely love Paul Verhoeven films such as RoboCop, Starship Troopers, stuff like that. Like his directing style and like the kind of films he decides to make are like the perfect blend of like somewhat serious but just enough tongue-in-cheek to make it funny, like just like look like satirical, if you will. So if you look at like RoboCop, that's a classic example. This film, like I said earlier, Starship Troopers, which I'll probably watch for some point on this series when we get to. I think it was like 1997. I think I was at a Sci-Fi convention in 1996 and saw a trailer for it, and then I think it came out like a year later. But Paul Verhoeven is just basically the perfect director for this. The movie is just action-packed. It's violent. There's some silliness to it. It's definitely way over the top in many regards, but I think that's why it just works so well. It's based on a Philip K. Dick story. We can remember it for you wholesale. I remember they did a 2012 remake of Total Recall that I actually didn't think was terrible. It's nothing compared to the original. That one has like Colin Farrell and Bryan Cranston in it. And I think from what I remember reading, that one was supposed to be more closely linked to the book, or at least followed it more closely. I've only seen that one once. I remember not hating it. I thought it was just okay. But it's definitely, the Schwarzenegger one is just iconic and just very classic. So the screenplay was written by Ronald Shusett, Dan O'Bannon, and Gary Goldman. Apparently, it was they bought the rights to it. I want to say in like 1974 or something. And just with the kind of like the extensive, what they wanted to do with the movie was just kind of too much at that time. So it kind of was just in development hell from like 1974 until like the mid to late 80s when they actually started producing the film. Arnold really wanted to do the film, and I think it was supposed to be started by like Dino De Laurentiis' production company, and apparently they kind of denied the role to Schwarzenegger, saying he was inappropriate for the role, or it wasn't a good role for him. Eventually, though, he kind of convinced, I don't know if I'm going to pronounce this correctly, but it's Carloco Pictures. If you're familiar with Terminator 2, at least the original like theatrical version, it's like it got the C logo that kind of like goes in like that. That's Carloco Pictures. They were the production company, I think, behind like Terminator 2 and this. He convinced them to buy the rights to the film and put him in the lead role. The weird thing with that, the funny thing, or kind of funny, is I consider this to be one of his most iconic films. like one of Schwarzenegger's most iconic films. Like you probably say like Terminator is probably like the most iconic, and then maybe like Conan. But then I think Total Recall is like easily in one of his most notable roles. Like he's got some huge ones like obviously Terminator, Predator, um, True Lies. But I think Total Recall is like number two or number three. It's gonna be like right behind Terminator. I just think he brings so much to the movie that just having him not be in the movie is just weird. I think in the 2012 version, Colin Farrell did a fine job basically playing the same character, but Schwarzenegger just brought so much to it in this version that it's hard to kind of see this movie not have him in it. So like they made it. Apparently the budget was around between 48 and 80 million dollars, and that was one of the more expensive films at the time. Obviously, we're looking at this film now, where like a production budget of 40 or 80 million dollars is pretty low, considering like some of the Marvel movies, like costing like 200, 300 million dollars to make. This costing around 80 million or between 48 and 80 million seemed like a lot. I guess it was a lot, obviously a lot back then. It ended up grossing about $261 million its first time out, so it did very well. But yeah, this film is just classic. It's iconic. I think overall it's just really good sci-fi as well. Like it's good action sci-fi. We're gonna break the plot down, and the cool thing with the movie is it did a lot with obviously like sci-fi, but then like memories, are these memories real? Is the movie actually happening? Is this something that he was like is he still just sitting in recall, and this is the kind of adventure he chose to go on? It leaves a lot of that open to the audience. But let's go ahead and break down the plot. Film starts off, it opens up on Mars, and it's him and I forget the actress's name. I don't know who Sharon Stone's in this movie too. She's awesome in this movie. But it's him and this lady, and like he slips, falls down a hill, hits his helmet. That's where that iconic scene where the helmet glass shatters, and then he's exposed to the atmosphere on Mars, and you see his like the eyes bugging out. He's like freaking out, and then he wakes up in like his like imagine like what's supposed to be like his apartment, and Sharon Stone's there, and he's having these dreams about Mars, and then he goes to work. He's like a construction worker. On the train, he sees a thing about going to recall, which is basically like a vacation, but you never really leave. You basically go in, and you get the memories that you were on this vacation, basically implanted in you, and then instead of actually going to wherever you're going, like Mars, for example, the one that he wants to go to, you basically just get the memories of that vacation. And then even like the sales guy who's like, like if you get this package, we'll still give you like the souvenirs. You'll have pictures. You have all this stuff, and then you have the memories of that vacation. It'll be like you actually were on that vacation, but you didn't actually go on that vacation. And I remember he's talking to a guy at work about it. He's like, don't go there. Like, I know a guy that went there and nearly got lobotomized or whatever the expression was. But Schwarzenegger goes, and they have a new thing called the ego trip, which is it's a vacation, but you're basically vacationing as like a different person. Like in the case, like he picks like the secret agent package. He goes in, something is going wrong. He's like, oh, you blew my cover. And the doctor's like, oh, he's just acting out the secret agent part of his ego trip package. And the doctor's like, that's impossible because we haven't even installed that yet. So he basically, like gets out of there, goes back, gets attacked by the other guy from the construction company and like four other guys. Ends up killing them, and then going back to his apartment where Sharon Stone is there. And Sharon Stone is like, oh my God, like what's going on? And she contacts someone played by Michael Ironside. Michael Ironside does a very good job. Is like there's two villains in this movie. One is Ronnie Cox, and he's kind of like the main overall villain. And then you have Michael Ironside is basically the henchman. And both Ronnie Cox and Michael Ironside, I think, bring a lot to the role. I think to kind of go off of the plot for a second, a few years later, Ronnie Cox did an episode of Star Trek, Star Trek: The Next Generation to be specific, where he played Captain Jellicoe. And Captain Jellicoe, a lot of people have they didn't like Jellicoe initially. And I think a lot of people have actually they've actually had a turnaround on him where they're like, okay, Jellicoe's actually not a bad captain. And they actually more vilify Riker now because Riker's the one that's kind of like being somewhat insubordinate. I think that when that episode came out, Ronnie Cox had just like he obviously did Total Recall. A couple years before that, did RoboCop and both Verhoeven films. But Ronnie Cox is basically up to that point, like in a lot of people's like minds, had just played villains. Like I remember like only seeing Ronnie Cox in this and RoboCop up to that point. And when he showed up in Star Trek, it's like, oh, it's the guy from RoboCop. That's like the I think the CEO of OCP, or it's like one of the higher up executives, or it's the guy who's basically like trying to charge people for air in Total Recall. So I think there was like a predisposition to not like that character, or not, yeah, that character. But to go back on topic though, she contacts Michael Ironside, and then it's basically they've then said, okay, well, the memories of Douglas Quaid are fake, and you're actually this other person, and we basically implanted these memories in you to protect you from something or whatever the thing was. And then he basically escapes from Michael Ironside and his henchmen, and that's when you get the iconic Johnny Cab is cool, because Johnny Cab is voiced by Robert Picardo. I wouldn't be surprised if they actually like resembled him, the likeness on him too, because it's kind of got like that kind of the same like facial features as Robert Picardo. And if Johnny Cab was not wearing the hat, he probably would have the same like balding areas that Robert Picardo does. But Robert Picardo, more famously playing the holographic Doctor on Star Trek Voyager, does the voice of Johnny Cab. And then one of the more iconic scenes is you get a video of Schwarzenegger talking to Schwarzenegger, where he's basically like, "All right, like if you're seeing this video, like I've been caught, like kept caught, and like you're now like I'm like you basically, so you need to." It's basically like almost like an insurance policy to basically be like, "Hey, if you're seeing this, they got you, and they have like a tracking bug implanted in you. Take this thing and stick it up your nose and pull the bug out." It's one of the more iconic scenes because you basically see this huge like marble basically just like stuffed to Schwarzenegger's nose, and you see it glowing through underneath, and he pulls it out, and then gets rid of the tracking bug, and then gets to Mars. When he gets to Mars, he's basically wearing this like fat suit of a woman who's on vacation, and it goes off. He like the head comes off. It's an iconic scene. Comes off, and he throws it. It's basically an explosive that blows up. And then he goes to a hotel to get a lockbox that says "Go to this club." You then go to like the nightclub district, and you meet Benny. Benny is one of the awesome characters, but like Benny, of course, if you know the movie, obviously turns on our characters like toward like the midway, not midway, but like the third act of the film. He drives him around to this nightclub, and basically Schwarzenegger's been there before. His character is supposed to be his character called Hauser that worked there before, and basically Ronnie Cox is looking. There's like a rebellion on Mars going on, and Ronnie Cox is trying to stop the rebellion and basically charge people for air and that kind of thing. And they're looking for this guy called I think it was like Guado or something like that. I think the character's name, but like also the practical effects in this movie are just amazing. Like the guy like opens his shirt, and he got this like thing that like pops out, and that's actually the guy who's like, open your mind. But they eventually track down what's going on, and they're going to so this is where it kind of gets weird, because you have they basically plant these memories into Quaid to get him to basically be able to get past the psychics that can detect that like this kind of thing. They kind of touch on this in this Colin Farrell one, where I think he goes to recall that one, and there's already a like suppressed, or I don't know if it would be considered to be suppressed, but it's a memory, and like this guy like goes through. He's like, "Hey, have you ever like had like this procedure done before?" And Colin Farrell's like, "No, I haven't." And then it turns out that he actually has, and didn't remember it happening because it was like a thing where they basically like suppressed one personality to do another. And they touch on that in this one as well. And Quaid basically is told that he has been like Hauser, but like Hauser wants his body back because he's like, "Hey, like we found Guado, he's dead. Like, awesome, this job is done. We're going to basically like undo all the stuff that we did so I could get my body back." And then at that point is when the kind of the end of the film comes up, where basically he needs to go to this reactor in these ancient like alien mines on Mars and activate it, and that'll basically make all of Mars's air breathable. Like Ronnie Cox is basically trying to prevent that from happening, because he's like, "Hey, like I can like charge people for air. This is awesome. I'm not going to, we're not going to turn this reactor on, because that would be basically be like we're out of a job if that's the case." But the thing was to get Quaid up there, so they would basically find out who Guado was, so they could basically just kill him because he's the guy who's kind of like in charge of this revolution, and he doesn't get killed anyway. But it's not until after he tells Quaid to activate the reactor. There's like a fight in the like kind of like the mines, and one of the best scenes in the movie. They do this thing in the early in the movie where when he opens that suitcase up. There's a few things in there. There's like a gun. And speaking of the gun, the gun design in this movie is really cool. Like the weapons just look futuristic and they look awesome. Like there's like guns that are like they have like a long barrel, but they also have like a thing that goes beyond like the stock of the gun. It just looks really cool. All the weapons look really cool. But it gets this thing and it shows like this holographic projection of him. And I had not seen the movie in so long, I kind of forgot that thing existed. So early in the movie, when like he's still on Earth, he activates it for like a second, and you see another version of Schwarzenegger pop up for like a second, and it's basically a hologram. When they're fighting in the reactor, you see Schwarzenegger basically just walk up past like 30 guards and basically just gets blasted. You think like, oh, they got him, and then he starts laughing. He's like his like classic Schwarzenegger laugh. He's like and then like I can't even do the Schwarzenegger laugh, but it's like he does this laugh, and then Michael Ironside is like, oh, he's got a hologram, like find out what's going on, like track him down, because whenever it's like there's the real Quaid and the projection basically. At one point, he gives the holographic projector to the lady he's with, and he does the same thing. But one of the best parts of this film is it does this thing where you see Schwarzenegger walk out, he does the laugh again, and he's like, oh, you think this is the real Quaid, and the guards are like, oh, it's just a hologram, it's fine. So they turn around, and then Schwarzenegger, like a split second around, turns around, he's like, it is, and then blasts them. It's just hilarious. But he's like, ah ha ha, you think this is the real Quaid? And he's like, it is. So yeah, like a really cool scene with that, with the holographic projector. And then there's a part where Michael Ironside, they're going up an elevator, Michael Ironside is hanging off of it, and there's like the elevator goes through a thing where basically like if there's anything hanging off the side, it's not going to be able to get up there. So Michael Ironside's arms are hanging like onto the thing, and they basically just get sliced off. It's pretty brutal looking, and it's over the top though. So it definitely it's like I said, it's Paul Verhoeven, so there's like over the top is kind of like baked into like the DNA of this movie. But then he gets up to the reactor. He fights with Ronnie Cox for a second. Ronnie Cox gets flung out of the reactor. And then I think, like, from the way I understood it, was basically the reactor made the air breathable, but Ronnie Cox's character was on the ground too long because, like, both, like, all the characters end up out there, and we kind of get a flashback to the beginning of the movie where Schwarzenegger's helmet is broken and his eyes are starting to bug out and all that. It does that again, but then by the time it's over, the air is now completely breathable, and everybody gets to breathe. Everybody in the kind of the red light district area, all the air turns on for them, and that is the end of the film. It's an amazing movie. If you haven't seen it, I would highly recommend checking it out. It's a really good action movie. It's just classic Schwarzenegger, classic Paul Verhoeven, and also on top of that, it's just good sci-fi. I think it's Philip K. Dick, so a lot of his stuff is he's like written like a lot of other short stories that have turned into pretty good films as well. So I would highly recommend checking out Total Recall. It's a blast. The film, I think, remember, it got kind of, didn't necessarily say spoofed, but in Hot Shots Part 2 in 1993, there's a part where so many people in Total Recall just get blasted and slaughtered by Schwarzenegger and other people that are like around them, that there is like, I don't even know what the actual like body count would be. I don't know if anybody's actually like watched the movie and has checked off like every character that Schwarzenegger's killed, or like because there's a lot of them. But in Hot Shots Part 2, there's a part where Charlie Sheen's character is just blasting on people, and there's like a body count ticker going up and going up and going up, and once it hits a certain level, it just stops counting and it just says Total Recall. So I think that was just a kind of like a little tongue-in-cheek joke that how like the body count in Total Recall is just kind of off the charts. But that's going to do it for this episode. I had a blast watching this movie again. Really good time watching it. So if you haven't watched it, definitely go check it out. But that's going to do it for now. We'll be back again in a few days with another video for 1990. We'll be doing a video game. And then after that, we're going to jump right into 1991. and do the same thing with an album, a movie, and a video game, and then into 1992 and so on. But that's going to do for now. So remember to like, comment, share, subscribe. We'll see you again next time. Thanks again for watching. Take care and have a good one. See ya.